Hey everyone, Caleb with Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with a video titled, You Gotta Be Willing to Drive. Guys, the title says it all. You gotta be willing to drive if you're doing this business. If you are a bookseller like me, you have to be willing to not just go down the street. You have to be willing to go not just across your town. You have to be willing to drive miles upon miles upon miles sometimes in order to buy books, to find books, that sort of thing. The reason for that, guys, is sometimes where you live, there aren't a lot of great books to be had. Sometimes where you live, there might be a lot of other booksellers who have already bought all the good books. You might be going to bookstores that all the other booksellers have already hit, so there aren't any really good books left for you to find and be ecstatic as everything. For me, I know I've shared the story with you guys about me finding the first edition of The Time Machine at Goodwill Outlet in the Portland area. Guys, the amount of really good books that I find at Goodwill Outlet, very, very low. The reason why it's so low is because Portland has a boatload and a half of used booksellers. And because of that, and because of, there's this place called Powell's Books, which is like a legendary library. I've never been, but it's supposed to be so amazing. And they buy a ton of books from all these other people. And because of that, there's not a lot of great books for me to find at so many places in the Portland area between Powell's Books and all the other booksellers. So with that said, I do have to drive a little bit further out than a lot of other people have to go. And yeah, that is an added expense. That is a little more risk on my part, because since I'm driving so far, I'm going through a whole tank of gas. I'm spending, depending on what gas is, between $50 and $100 to go however far I'm going. You know, like if I want to drive to, say, Pendleton, that's almost a tank of gas. That's almost $80 just to do that. And Pendleton, I don't actually go there too often. I haven't actually gone book buying for a long time. Again, I've mentioned in other videos, I've been burning through that estate sales giant haul from that one really massive estate sale. I probably will link to that one later on, well, at the end of the video. It's going to be right there at the very end of the video. Don't go there just yet. I'm watching you guys. If you guys do want to see other videos from me, though, be sure to subscribe down there or down below. But guys, if you do want to make a whole lot of money in this business, you have to be willing to drive pretty far. For me, I have personally driven just to get to an estate sale, to a Friends of the Library sale, something like that. I have driven 400 miles there. That's a little bit of a drive, folks. That's, you know, like a lot of people are not going to do that. There's a lot of people that I've talked to that are like, oh, I don't want to do that business. And I'm like, why? And they're like, I have to drive all the way downtown. That's like 4 miles. That's like 2 miles. It's like, okay, if you're not willing to drive that far, then I'm not telling you anything more about this business, because for me, I have to drive hundreds of miles in order to get the really good deals, in order to make the most money that I can, because guys, no one else is willing to put in a whole lot of work for their business. So many of the other booksellers in the Portland area that I compete with, basically, they don't drive all the way to these other places. They don't drive. One of my favorite places, guys, is Prineville. They don't drive to Prineville. Another one of my favorite places that I went to, actually, it's one of the biggest bookstores book sales that I've gone to. It was up in Lakewood, Washington, which is just below Seattle. And guys, 1.5 million booksellers went there and bought a ton of books there. I had to compete with them. I had to punch a couple people. No, I didn't. But I had to fight my way through to get a lot of these good books at that particular one. The prices were a lot higher because everyone went to that one. That's why I haven't actually been back to that one, even though I loved that one. But there's a lot of competition at some places. For me, I was competing with people all the way up there because you had all the Seattle people coming down and all the other people in that area coming down to that particular one because it wasn't too far out of town for them. For me, where I normally do best is when I drive a few miles away from town. For me, what I've found personally is about 10 miles outside of like a downtown area is usually the best way to get the best books. That does not necessarily mean that you are going into the middle of the country. For me, when I'm saying downtown, I mean like out about 10 miles out of a really large city, or out of the outskirts of a really large city. So for me, Portland has like well over 1 million people in the Portland metro area. So when I go just a few miles outside of that area, I can find a whole lot of great books, because guys, people in the country, they do read books, believe it or not. I know a lot of people say that those country bumpkins don't know anything, but a lot of them read a whole lot, because when you're in the country, you can't go to the club, so you are stuck at home where you do things, and when you do things, sometimes you choose to read a book, and when you read a book, you get smarter, and when you get smarter, you think to read more books. So when you guys find someone that has some books, usually they don't just have one or two, usually they have like 100, because it's sort of like an addiction, because it's not only entertainment, but it also is education, and some people really love that. So for me, I find that the country bumpkins are actually some of the biggest prolific readers of some of the most valuable and coolest books ever. Like, guys, a lot of the books that I've shared with you are actually from country bumpkin sort of areas. All these are from a small town. It's not the smallest town out there. It's called Battleground, Washington. It's just north of Portland a little ways, but a lot of people call that like backwoodsy redneck country. I don't really think so. I think it's a beautiful area. I think the people are really, really cool though. But these really cool ones came from there. Let's see, Smithsonian ones. Those came from. Where did the Smithsonians come from? I don't remember. But those ones there also came from Battleground. Those ones over there came from I want to say Oregon City on the far end there. These I want to say were. No, they weren't Prineville. I want to say these were McMinnville, which it's not the biggest town, it's not the smallest town, but it's an okay-sized town. It's miles and miles away from Portland area. But with that said, I don't believe any of these books here actually came from a large town. I think every single one of them actually came from at least a few miles outside of a downtown area, which, guys, that's pretty accurate to what my actual sourcing is. When I go to the downtown areas, I am fighting 500 other booksellers, and pricing for these books, guys, I'm paying $5 per book at these downtown places, whereas when I go to the middle of nowhere, I'm paying 50 cents, I'm paying $1, I'm paying $2. And $2 is the high end for a lot of these places, and I'm willing to pay $2. It's okay. And when you think about how many books I'm buying at these places, I am buying, say, 200 books because I'm the only one there buying books. And you are like, oh, but you spent all the money in gas. Guys, when you average out $80 in gas across 200 books, it does not matter whatsoever. Like, honestly, guys, like, it really is one of the biggest parts of this business is driving. You got to be willing to drive to find the good deals, to find the really, really stupid good books. And honestly, it's really fun to just explore your hometown, your home state, or your neighboring state. For me, Washington, that's not where I live, or Washington, as my grandpa calls it. He's from Walla Walla, Washington, so he calls it that. A lot of Washington people on the east side call it Washington, at least the older ones that I talk to. But yeah, I go to Washington. It's just across the border. Sometimes I go to California. Killjoy, Cali is not that bad on the north end of it. Going down south a little more, people are a little crazier. But on the north end of California, they're cool. Reading, guys, that's the lowest I've ever gone to buy books. I have gone, obviously, lower into California, but that's as far as I've gone to buy books. I have... With the Reading, California ones that I've done, that one is a little bit more on the iffy side of things on making good money. And the reason for that is a lot of the times that I've gone, I've only gone to the Goodwill and Salvation Army. I have not hit estate sales. I have not hit a Friends of the Library sale. A lot of the times that when I'm going out to do these things, I do end up going to these places for the Friends Library sale, and then I hit all the other stores in town while I'm there in order to ensure that I'm making a profit on the trip. There are a lot of other things that I do to ensure that I make a profit on these trips. I've had people try to correct me and say I need to sell books that are cheaper than $25 or else I'm going to lose money. I've yet to go on any trip that I've lost money on, so after 5 years, I think I have a good track record. I could be wrong, but I have had some people try to correct me on that and say, oh, you need to just do $10. And yeah, I could do that. I did do that in the very beginning, but at the end of the day, when you have that sort of low end, you end up with 65 trillion books in your car and just hours and hours of listing. So I stopped doing that. The higher end profit margins worked a whole lot better for me. And I stopped doing that as well when I killed my FBA business, because I stopped doing that because the fees, all this stuff like that, the profit margins just weren't there for me when I could do similar amount of work and make a whole lot more money on eBay. So with that said though, guys, back to the thing about driving though. Remember what I said about the Reading thing. I go there and it's the most iffy on making a great profit. Yeah, I do end up profiting every single time, but rather than being like, oh, I made 50 times on my money, it's more like once you factor in the hotel, because I have to stay in a hotel most of the times that I go there, because when it's 8 hours there, 8 hours back, that's not necessarily the best thing to do all in one day. But I do a hotel there, and I stopped staying in the rattiest hotels because Yeah, some bad experiences at the rattiest hotels. Don't do it, guys. You can get tax write-offs. It's worth taking tax write-offs for a little more of a expensive hotel. Not necessarily the best one out there, but yeah, don't hate yourself. It's bad. But with that said, though, guys, the reason why I am the most iffy on the Reading one is I don't time it necessarily the best for what I would do if I am going to all these other places. Honestly, sometimes I don't do any research at all before I go to some of these places. Like, I'm just like, okay, I remember this one was open this time, so I'm just going to go there. And the ones that I don't do the research for beforehand are oftentimes the most iffy on making the best possible profit. The key to making sure that you make money on these trips, guys, is to do your homework before you go. As I said earlier, the Reading one, I don't always do my homework, so I don't always make as much money as I could. However, when I do my homework, guys, I'm able to do a whole lot better. I'm able to make multiples on my money. Like, oh, I'm spending $50 on books. No, I don't ever spend $50 on books when I go on these long trips. I'm spending $500 on books. How about that? And I'm spending $100 in gas, $100 on a hotel. You know, like, okay, that is $700 spent. Let's just throw in another $100 just to say other things could happen. So $800 on the trip. I am not going to spend that kind of money. I'm not going to take that kind of risk if I'm only going to make, say, $400 for my time, for my effort, for my risk. I'm going to spend $800 on a trip if I'm guaranteed to make, let's just pull out a calculator, honestly. So guys, I like to make $25 on the books that I sell on the low end. My average up until the last few months where I changed my business model a little bit, but on the low end, sorry, not on the low end, my average book sales were $75 per book. That was my average, which means I have some books that sell for more, some that sell for less, a lot that sell for less. The ones that are on the higher end are usually a whole lot higher, so it sort of skews the data. It's the outliers on the data that skew it towards the 75. Oftentimes, I find that my when I'm doing my business, as I recommend you guys do it at least, I find that my sort of mode for books that I do, excuse the heater, for the books that I do, guys, I find that my mode price is probably between $45 and let's say $100. That's roughly what I sell the bulk of my books for. However, again, some are on the lower end of that, some are on the higher. But with that said, guys, I'm going out, spending $800 to do this trip, say, and because I like to make the $25 on the low end for each book that I do, and let's say I did $500 in books, let's say I did just 250 books with that, let's say I spent $250 for that, so $800, actually, first things first, so 800, how am I doing this? Oh, maths. So excuse me as I try to figure things out. So 250 books divided by $800 basically. No, 800 divided by 250. Man, I'm struggling, sorry guys. That means the overall cost for all those books, including the entire trip, is $3.20 per book. So that includes gas, that includes lodging, that includes all that sort of stuff. It does not include labor, and that is why I have the $25 rule for my books. So just bear in mind that. So let's say 250 times 25, because $25 per book, that's $6,250. And okay, $6,250 minus the $800 that I spent, that is a profit of $5,450, and let's divide that by 800. So that is a multiple of just 6 times on my money based on that math. That's not, yeah, that is right. So 6 times on my money, that's not very great. That is why I don't just buy books that are only $25. Again, my average sales price was $75. So let's just run through those numbers again. So 250 times 75 instead of 25, that's $18,000, $750. And again, let's take away $800 for my actual cost expenses. That's $17,950. And now let's divide that by 800. And that is a 22 multiple on my money. That's what I see in a lot of these trips that I do, because again, I do my homework ahead of time. I'm able to get multiples of, in this case, 22 times on my money. And again, guys, sometimes I do better than that, sometimes I do worse on that. It depends on what I see, what I buy, how many books I buy, all that sort of stuff. And again, these numbers do not include my personal labor. However, for 250 books, On a good day, I can list 30 books. However, most of the time I only list about 10. I like to take it easy on myself because I am running other businesses as well. So 25 days of listing. So that is quite a lot of labor. Of course, I can list 30 books. I spend about 6 to 10 minutes per book on listings. So let's just say that I spent 10 minutes per book just on the high end. So 250 times 10, and then we're going to divide that by 60. So that is 41 hours, almost 42 hours, which is 2 days basically of solid labor. Of course, if I'm only listing 10 books per day, that is only going to be 100 minutes divided by 60. Oh, look at that. Not very much time at all per day. Oftentimes, I'm able to list those 10 books, though, within an hour. So let's just say for the 250 books, that's 25 days again. So nothing too exciting. 25 days, 25 hours for roughly to list all those, plus the trip itself, which drive time, let's say 8 hours, buying the books 4 hours. That's not very much time. So you do have to factor that in if you guys have employees, that sort of stuff, or if you are a very big numbers person, you can do that as well. But for me, I'm not too worried about that. I do know from my experience that I am making very good money for my hourly, so I'm not going to get into that too much more. So with all that said, though, guys, I know that's a big escapade off on the side of the let's just do random numbers, but with all that said, though, guys, I mentioned quite a few times, do your homework, 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 all that sort of stuff. I sound like that very annoying middle school teacher that you had, that you're just like, sir, if aliens came, I would tell them to abduct you because I don't want to deal with you. And then you think, and you're like, no, I wouldn't say that because then the aliens would kill us all because they're annoyed by you as well. And they think we're all like you. You know, I'm just sort of making a joke there. But with that said, though, guys, I know I can be a little bit annoying of saying do your homework, but that is something that is highly required. However, what is your homework for this? What am I talking about? So, guys, what I'm talking about here, I've shown you guys in a lot of videos of how I look for books at estate sales, all that sort of stuff. And I do recommend that you guys actually, I do recommend that you guys watch like some of those sort of the premiere videos that I did, where I go to the big random towns, and I'm like, okay, you guys said you want Cleveland, Ohio. I'm going to Cleveland, Ohio. I do recommend that you guys watch those videos. I know that they are long. You guys can watch them on 2x speed. To do that, actually, you guys can go down. I think my hand is probably where it is. You can go down here. There's a little gear icon, and you can actually click that and like hit 2 times for the playback speed. You can do that. I recommend doing that, honestly, if you guys are going to watch those videos. And if you're not watching the premiere, of course you don't have to. It helps me actually if you guys don't do that, but if you do have a rush for time, you can definitely do that. But I do recommend that you guys watch that, because that is how I do my homework in order to look for these trips, in order to guarantee that I'm making money. I do a lot of times, I end up doing all that homework, and I figure out, okay, based on these numbers, I'd only be able to profit $2,000 for this weekend from this one place. That doesn't sound too amazing. That's not my best weekend ever, so let's check this other town. This one's only $500, so this one is still better. Let's check this other town. Like, I will look up quite a few other towns from where I'm living in order to be like, okay, so this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. This spot right here, this one has 2 Friends of the Library sales going on here, and it has 5 estate sales. And looking at all these photos, looking at the books, looking at what they say they have at the Friends of the Library sale, okay, based on that, I should be able to make $30,000, something like that. You know, like, it is something that you guys do need to do, and I recommend that you guys watch my videos on that, because I do go over a lot of the numbers of, okay, based on that, that should get me a return of this. And I recommend you guys do that because, again, it makes sure, or at least boosts your chances of you making a very good profit on your time, on your books, on your expenses, that sort of stuff. If you guys don't do that, you will end up like me sometimes when I go to the Reading place or some of the other places where I don't do all of my homework that I should be doing, and I end up being like, oh wow, this trip was not worth my time whatsoever. I only made, once all the expenses are calculated, I only made $50. I only made $100. That's not worth my time. That's like, come on, man, what was I thinking? You know, like, that's something that can happen to you guys if you guys aren't doing your homework. So that is one of the reasons why I made so many of those videos. Guys, I hope I should be able to make them again. My computer has been behaving, but I'm not guaranteeing that I'm doing that whatsoever, because it's really annoying when you make an hour-long video and it gets murdered by the computer. So not making any guarantees, but I do want to get back to that as soon as I can. Just again, I can't make any guarantees just yet. But with that said, though, guys, it is something that's very important for you guys to do. Those work with me, walk with me videos, those are so important, again, because it really shows how much time I put into doing the homework for my business. And the reason why I do all the homework is I have seen that the homework is able to help me profit more on these trips. It has shown me that and it helps me ensure that I am going to the best possible place to get my return on my money. If I could go to, say, let's just say Portland, and know that I can make $5,000, or I can drive to Prineville and make $10,000, I know for a fact that I'm going to do the Prineville one, not only because Portlanders are crazy, but because $10,000 is a little bit more. So that is the sort of thing that I do. That is the thing that I recommend for you guys, because at the end of the day, the multiples on your money just from doing homework allows you to do so much better in your business. It allows your business to thrive, and it is something that is very important. However, again, guys, it depends on you being willing to drive. And of course, not just driving, but being able to be willing to do the homework as well. So this is something that I will probably do like a little reseller rule, my reseller rule playlist. I probably will do a shorter form of this video on this one, on this topic, for that reseller rule video, because it is such an important thing. I do think it is an important rule to this business, because so many newbies, they will only drive to, say, one Goodwill in town, and a lot of us that have been doing this business for a long time are like, oh, don't go to Goodwill at all, it's terrible. I go to Goodwill, but a lot of other people hate it. I personally hate it sometimes as well. It can be terrible, but it can also be very good. But don't depend on just a Goodwill. Don't depend on just a Salvation Army. Especially don't depend on just Salvation Army, guys. The Salvation Armies I go to, like, I would say 60% of the time it's not worth it. Maybe 80% of the time it's not worth even going to. Goodwill, I would say, is more like 40 to 60% of the time it's not worth going to. And those are, again, guys, for the Goodwill one, those are because I don't go to the main ones that everyone goes to that are booksellers. If I went to those, I would say 20% of the time it's even worth going to. It's just terrible when you go to the ones that everyone goes to. But with all that said, back to what I was saying, a lot of the newbies, they will only go to one or two places right near them and then quit the business because they're like, I can't make money. You have to be willing to drive. You have to be willing to put in the time, or else you are not going to do very well. You're not going to find the really good sales. You're not going to find great deals. You're not going to find a great selection. So again, guys, you got to be willing to drive to do this business. Otherwise, you just will not make the money that you could and that you should be making. So with all that said, though, guys, I know this is a long video. I know I went on 15 different tangents, but I hope it was all relevant enough for you guys. I know that, oh, Caleb, you should edit out this part here because that was a boring tangent. But guys, I'm doing this video for more than just 5 people. I'm trying to reach as many people as I can, and because I am trying to do this reach, because I know that not everyone is going to watch every single video, even though a lot of you guys do. So thank you guys, those of you that watch like 50 videos of mine, thank you. That does help my channel. I'm trying to get to the monetized point. That is a big goal for me. I do have some stuff that I'm thinking about doing once we get monetized. I'll mention that in a later video once we get closer to it, but with that said, though, guys, I know that some people are only going to watch, say, this video, so I do want to go on these different tangents where I do address a lot of these different things, because otherwise these people might not end up watching all those things and learning all these different caveats. And I know I do address a lot of different caveats several times in all the different videos I make, but it's because some of these caveats are really important, such as doing your homework. Very important. But with all that said, though, guys, thank you for watching. If you did get any value out of this video, be sure to subscribe. It's up there or down there. And again, guys, linked up there is the one estate sale that I mentioned. That's up top. And be sure to check out one of the other videos as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.